Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Deirdra Govan, the costume designer for Devotion, starring Jonathan Majors and Glenn Powell. Deirdra, this is a powerful film. It's a true story of a Navy pilot by the name of Jesse Brown, best fighter of his day, only Black person in naval fighting officer training, and it takes place in the 1940s. I didn't know about this story, and I think that's why films like this are so important. And I'm curious if you were familiar with him, and what did it feel like to be a part of telling his story?
Firstly, I have to say I was not familiar with the story of Jesse Brown, which was quite embarrassing. My stepfather served in Korea. And so when I read the script, it was very powerful, but at the same time, I felt disappointed in the fact that I had not heard of his story, and I pretty much read everything. So when I read the book, and obviously I read the script first, I was completely blown away. There's so much richness and depth to this man, and the fact that he is an unsung hero until now was pretty shocking to me, especially in the vernacular of African Americans who are aviators. I mean, we hear about the Tuskegee Airmen, we hear about all the stories that we all know very well, but this was a story that was yet unknown. So I was very just moved and excited to have been asked to be a part of the production.
And then where do you even begin your research? I heard you had a very limited time crunch. So can you talk about that and then talk about sort of where you start?
For me, everything is on the page. However, when you are dealing with a historical biopic and real lives that were lived, you start with the book. At least that's where I start. And if you happen to have people who are still around, you investigate and you ask questions and you ask for access and information and images and photos, anything that could help you create the skin that these characters will inhabit on screen. So a lot of it is a lot of due diligence and research. And in terms of a time frame, I had 7 weeks to pull this momentous project together. It was quite challenging. We were at the height of the pandemic. I was flying between New York and LA, which is where I did the majority of my prep. And then, of course, back down to Georgia, Savannah. So I was fortunate enough to have some really solid resources with our costume houses. However, the caveat was that a lot of this naval accoutrement or costume pieces didn't exist. So a lot of it relied on research and finding images and also finding replicas that could be remade or sculpted or built so that they were as close to accurate as possible. I worked with many artisans across the country to build several. I think we had roughly over 1,000 pieces. We built everything from the underwear to the socks, to the boxers, to the flight suits, to the bomber jackets, which were reproductions that I had a vendor out in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, who did me a solid and gave me some really great bomber jackets, which our principals wore. And also we did quite a few rentals for our background players as well. So it was a lot in a very short amount of time, but I'm really happy with the result because we had so much support and so many people who were very excited, and quite frankly, a lot of collectors who are very into wartime, films and collect pieces. And some people even offered to, share what they had with me so I could utilize it as I built new ones based upon what was the original.
How big of a team does that take then to assemble that many pieces?
It's quite a substantial team. I think overall, roughly my crew was about roughly 20 people. And that does not include the costume shops and the builders that I had working outside of my production crew.
And menswear, I mean, people don't always give enough credit to the work that goes into that. You think of costume design, you think of the frilly dresses, but this is very specific, very time specific. What kind of detail did you have to get into in terms of like the fabric and and making it look worn, like these fighter pilots are actually wearing their clothes? What kind of work goes into that sort of thing?
I'm so glad you said that, Denton, because it's very easy for people to cling to the glam and the excitement. It's something that's accessible and, quite frankly, readily understandable. But when you get into the details of aviation gear, from flight suits to naval jackets to life vests, the details matter. And I really love the idea of canvas, cotton twills, leather, just the aging and the distressing that we had to do alone once we took things off. Once they were created and built, was a feat in and to itself, because we needed it to look authentic. We needed it to look as real as possible. So it is something that I found to be quite intense. You have to be there from the start of the first pattern, and you have a sample made, and then you go back and you make adjustments. And sometimes you have to do 2 and 3 adjustments just to get it right. And then you have the fitting. And then there are the tweaks that happen in that fitting room with that actor as you start to build that character. So it's a very detailed process.
And it's not only the uniforms, but the everyday wear. And then they attend like this gala where they're like buttoned up. They have their best uniforms on. What is it like? What's the differences there between what they're going to wear every day and something like that gala where they all look so put together?
Well, specifically, they don't just wear what they want when they want to. There's a certain point in time. So when we're in Cannes at the Casino de Carlo, it is dress whites. That is the formal dinner attire. There's actually 2 versions. There's dress whites, and there's also a dress jacket, the dress blacks, which we see towards the end when Tom Hudner, played by Glenn Powell, is wearing his formal wear for that ceremony. What I found interesting and just so awe-inspiring was seeing them all together in their dress whites. It was such a huge departure from the everyday tans, browns, and olive drab greens that we see them in for the majority of the film, notwithstanding the battle sequences as well. So when you see that scene, it was meant to be light. It was meant to be airy. France was further ahead in that time. And so you're getting a lot of the Dior shapes, you're getting a lot of the nipped waist, you're getting a lot of the details that still had yet to cross the Atlantic over into the States. So it was quite exciting. And it left, I think, a lot of us just breathless, because there were so many beautiful moments. And of course, then we go back to the Leti and we experience the guys in their uniforms. So there's a balance there, but I think that was the excitement that the audience will feel when the guys do step away off the ship and they do appear in their civilian clothes, and we do experience them at the casino. And
when they're there, we see Elizabeth Taylor, a young Elizabeth Taylor. People at this movie are like, did this happen?
Yes.
It did happen. So what was it like dressing a young Elizabeth Taylor and sort of getting in your mindset, what would she have worn at this age in this time period?
I can't tell you the excitement I had. I mean, not everyone can say they have the opportunity to reimagine and create Elizabeth Taylor, but I have to tell you, Serinda Swan made it seamless. She was well cast. She was beautiful. She understood to the nth degree the level of detail that I was going for, and she was game. And we built her costume. It's an original design that I created, and I did all my research in the images. She was there. I found the few images that I could. I built both her swimsuit as well as her casino look. And that was, finding this image. I think it was very early on when she just finished, I think, Giant or East of Eden, one of her films, and really found this dress that was a floral bouquet that was gorgeous. And she was known for her knit weights and plunging neckline, and it was so appropriate for the film. And I just leaned into that and recreated that design in my own mind and went for it. And Serinda it was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment from head to toe for her.
And what about Daisy, Jesse's wife? What's different about her and what a middle-class woman of that era would be wearing as opposed to an Elizabeth Taylor or someone in menswear?
Working to create Daisy from the real life Daisy was a very personal endeavor, because I wanted Daisy to come through as playful, as someone who was deeply in love with her husband. So my muse was Claire McCardle. A lot of the house dresses, daytime dressing. I learned earlier on that Daisy did not wear pants. So that was an adjustment that I made from wanting to do play suits and pants. She was all about the dresses and the details and painted nails and femininity. And I leaned into that as well. All of her dresses were built, natural cottons, fabrics we aged and washed and dyed, and really captured those subtle details of florals and ditzy prints and small, details of buttons, which was really exciting to me. I wanted her to feel accessible. I wanted her to represent comfort without being dowdy. And I felt that we balanced a lot of that with her story and the love story between her and Jesse.
Of all of the pieces, did you have a favorite?
Oh, I hate when people ask me that question. It's hard to choose. I like to say I have favorite scenes instead of favorite.
What's your favorite scene?
I would say, ironically, the most challenging scene was the battle scene, the Battle of Chosen River. That was quite substantial and massive. And we built all of those pieces, things that we were not able to rent, we built for the principals. And we had, fabric coming from Norway. We had buttons coming from LA. It was a feat unto itself. So it was quite exciting for me because it was challenging, and just getting in there, aging and distressing and really making it look real. That was exciting. We also built the Korean soldiers, looked at images of what they really wore at this time, and we built that as well. And that was just so exciting for me.
What's it like when you see your work up on like a big screen like that? Were you at the premiere, or
Yes.
what is that like when you're with everyone else and everyone there that put so much work into a film is all together and they see it on the big screen together?
I would say it is a humbling experience. I do not take my position in this industry lightly. I have been at this for a long time, and it took me almost 30 years to design my first massive film of the size. And I felt quite privileged to be in that space. For someone like me, a designer who's come up through the ranks of this industry, it's not often you get a project like this. And when it was presented to me and I interviewed for it and I consequently got the project, I felt honored. I was quite, I don't know, I felt it was synchronicity because we all came with the same energy and spirit. JD was just an incredible director to work with. Our producing team was amazing, and the energy, everyone was there for the right reasons. And the cast, I can't even say enough about them. Glenn and Jonathan were just really special souls and really allowed me to collaborate with them and building their characters. And, so did the rest of the guys as well. I just felt really honored to be there. And, it's a special film. So.
Did your career come from a passion for fashion or construction, or what led you on this path to become a film and television costume designer?
Well, I went to design school. I'm a graduate twice over from Parsons School of Design, as well as Pratt Institute. I studied fashion design and design management and art history, costume history. And so I guess it was in my blood. I think I got it honest from my family and my mother, who was very encouraging from very early on in my lifetime. I knew I wanted to be a creative. I've had a love for movies and everything that happens behind the scenes from a very young age. So I definitely pride myself on wanting to be in the space. And the excitement when I step back and look at it is, how lucky am I? Well, not just lucky, but I earned my way to be here. And I'm grateful.
What was that first TV or film set that you were on? Do you remember what it was like in that feeling? And yes. What did you make?
Okay, so I started out, I remember very clearly when I finished Parsons, I was working on 7th Avenue, and I remember I did not want to do that. And I had an opportunity from a family friend, and I said, listen, I really would like to get into theater and film. He worked with me, introduced me to the right people, and I just ran with it. And I was overseas doing an opera for almost a year, 27 countries. And I got a call from someone to come back and do a TV series called New York Undercover. And that was my first job in the industry. And I did that for, I think, 2 seasons. And that was in the very early mid 90s. And my first big film was Peacemaker with George Clooney and Nicole Kidman. And I was a background costumer working with military costumes. And then another big feature I did was One Fine Day, same thing as a costumer, and just learned everything. But I think where I was very fortunate is that I had the understanding of construction design for fabrication and detail. Before I had stepped into film and television, I was on Broadway and I did several of Cameron McIntosh's shows. I was in the basement, aging, dying, distressing, doing fine beadwork, detailing, rebuilding costumes that would be ripped to shreds because of the stress on the clothes. So I really pride myself in the fact that I'm from the ground up. I've had the experiences, and those experiences have been cataloged in my mind. And when I'm able to dial back and I get a project and I can just reference, experiences and things that I've worked on and done prior, and even my education, I definitely, I don't take this lightly. It's art that we're creating, but it's also a place of anthropology, psychology, it's cultural study. I love that. I love to travel. I've traveled many places, and that informs my work and inspires me. So very appreciative of those experiences.
I love that. Well, congratulations on this film. I hope everyone goes and sees it. It's such a fantastic movie. To everyone watching this interview, go to goldderby.com, make your Oscar predictions, check out more interviews with top contenders from this year. And Deirdra, thanks for chatting with Gold Derby today about your work on Devotion.
Thank you, Denton. I appreciate it. Thank you.